Hello, my name is Pranit Ganuji. The purpose of this video essay is to explore the portrayal of minorities in video game media. I have been playing video games ever since I could remember, which prominently had a white straight protagonist. I did not mind much about things like this. I did not even consider them as problems that needed addressing. I used to be one of those anti-SJW kind of guys who told people to stop complaining and just enjoy the game for what it is. Games are meant for fun. I don't want politics in my games. I want to escape into this world where there are no consequences to your actions. I remember playing Call of Duty multiplayer for the first time and someone from the other side of the world calling me racist slurs. I used to think, whoa, someone from the other side of the world just spoke to me. But as I grew older and wiser, when I tried to find meanings and philosophies of the stories I consumed, these things did start to bother me. The fact that there is literally no Indian superhero or even an Indian character who we can relate to. All I saw are caricatures of Indians and exaggerated versions of how we behave. Apu from Simpsons, Raju from Big Bang Theory are some of the examples. There was a study conducted by Mufiletto and Samantha Lien where 42 American participants were selected to reveal their real-life perception on Indians to see if the media affected their perception. And not so surprisingly, it did. The thesis says that because of the kind of representation Indians and Pakistanis in the media, it is harder to find relationships in real life. Since this is an 8-minute essay and my major is game arts and design, I will talk about representation of minorities in video games in particular. South Asians and Arabs in video games. This is going to be the easiest one. There are about 1.89 billion of us, and South Asia is the most densely populated geographical region in the world, yet there are very few of us in video games. Rami Ismail, who is one of the pioneers of indie game boom of the last decade, says in an interview given for IGN that there are very few Muslim characters in video games like Altair or Faira. It is the same for Indians too, or even worse. All I can remember are Asa from Uncharted The Lost Legacy, who is a villain, Henry from Assassin's Creed Syndicate, who doesn't contribute much to the story, Pagan Min from Far Cry 4, who is again a villain. There are characters like Ajay Ghale, but his ethnicity is South Asian, and he was shown to be born in the US and is a foreigner to Nepal, so he doesn't count. I think that's it. Sure, there are characters like Great Tiger and Abu Bora from Punch Out, Dharun Mister from Street Fighter. I put the characters in quotations because they are just playable polygons from fighting games with little to no backstory, and I don't consider them as characters. Black people, Asians, Hispanics in video games. A 2015 study showed that 85% of non-Hispanic Black people play video games that exceeds 71% of Caucasian teenagers, with 69% of Hispanic teens. Black and Latino players spend more time playing video games on console and mobile than white youth. With these stats, you would assume Black people will be represented well within the video game industries and their stories would be told, but it's not happening. In a 2009 study, it was found that only 10.7 characters in video games are Black relative to 12.3 representation of them using US statistics. And they are mostly confined to sports games, so I don't consider them as characters because they are just copying real life people into video games and remaining are either Black as violent, Black as help, Black as sidekick. According to Kishona Gray, professor from University of Illinois Chicago, only 2.7% of characters were Latinx out of 12.3 of the actual population in the US. Japanese and Chinese are often portrayed as kung fu fighters or yakuza thugs. Women in video games. I found too many articles and videos on this topic just makes you think how big of a problem this is. Women counted for 41% of all gamers in US, yet they are significantly less represented compared to men. Miller and Summers' research has taken 49 games, analyzed it, and found that there are 282 male humans and 53 female human characters in those games, which means there was one female for every 5.3 male characters. And when they are portrayed, they are often sexualized or played the damsel in distress. With all the points I have discussed, you would assume that there are no developments being made in the industry, but that would be wrong. We can see many new strong women protagonists in recent video games like Ellie and Abby from Last of Us 2, Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn. Representation of black characters have also been improved with Marcus from Watch Dogs, Nadine from Uncharted. They are not some loud grunts and they are not stereotyped or have cartoonish afros. They are characters with depth. There is still a lot needs to be done, especially when it comes to portrayal of Asians, but when we continue to point them out, we can see the difference in the future, hopefully. Why is representation important? But why do we care about portrayal of minorities in video games? It's just a video game after all. This will not affect our real life, right? There was an experiment conducted on children named the doll test, designed in 1940s, where a group of non-white children was shown two baby dolls, one is white and the other is black. And they were asked a couple of questions like which doll is pretty, which is nice, and this was the result.
Quale delle due è bella?
Questa.
Qual è quella brutta? E qual è quella buona? Quale è cattiva? Qual è la bambola che ti somiglia di più?
Shows us the effect of marginalization felt by African American children, and it is not their fault. Children are pure after all. They have no political agendas, no ideologies. They just say the first thing that comes to their head. After seeing how they are portrayed on media, this is not surprising. Children looking at this media form an unconscious bias even against their own race. By portraying them as superheroes or someone who is smart, independent, we can overcome this prejudice at least a little bit, as evidenced by the recent Black Panther movie. Michael B. Jordan, the actor who plays Killmonger, says it would be great for the next generation of black kids to see Black Panther who looks like them and can relate to them, especially when they are used to superheroes that looked nothing like them. It is the same within the video game industry as well. However, we are seeing improvements with more female characters who are not sexualized or played damsel in distress, and the introduction of African American characters like Lincoln Clay from Mafia 3, Marcus Holloway from Watch Dogs 2. According to me, we can never get rid of prejudice and racism that is deeply rooted within our system, but we can overcome them at least a little bit by better representation of minorities in video games.